29th, 2019. All members of committee are present today except for Councillor Williams and Medeiros, who are away, and Councillor Fortini, who is out of the country for family emergency. At the indulgence of members of the committee, we would need a motion to approve the chair today. Seeing Councillor Santos.
Happy to move that motion.
Okay, all in favor? I'm not sure if that's carried. Okay, so carried. Our first item today is the approval of the agenda. Members of committee, there are a few agenda changes identified on the package in front of you. We will ask the city clerk to review the changes for today's agenda since its publication on April the 18th. Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Chair, members of committee, members of staff, and the public attending today, there is only one change on today's agenda. It's item 8.1, minutes from the Brampton Heritage Board from April 16th. Those were listed on the agenda to be distributed. They have been shared electronically with the members this morning. They're on your desk at the start of the meeting, and they have been posted online.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Are there any other additions, changes, or deletions to the agenda? Councillor Pelletier.
Mr. Chair, with the committee's indulgence, I'd like to vary the order. I'd like to ask that committee accept 5.2 delegation from Rob El-Sayed, as Rob has a funeral that he has to attend, and I'd like to actually have him come up prior to the other delegations and the amendments to the signed bylaw. So I'd like to add that to be first on the agenda.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor. Seeing no further speakers on the board, may I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? All in favor? Carried. Our next item is, do any declarations under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? Do any members have a declaration of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act for any matter to be considered on today's agenda? Seeing none, the clerk will so note for the meeting minutes. Next, we have item 3, the consent agenda. The items listed with an asterisk on the agenda are considered to be routine and non-controversial. The consent motion is to adopt this matter on today's agenda without the need for a separate discussion on the item, unless a member requests a separate discussion. Does any member wish to add an item or remove an item from the consent motion on the agenda? Seeing no speakers on my board, may I have a motion to approve the agenda for today's meeting? From Councillor Bowman. All in favor? Carried. We have no statutory public meeting reports on today's agenda, so next we will move on to delegations. Item 5.2. A delegation from Nabi Yosef, Board Chair, Father Morkos Hana, Head Priest, and Rob El-Sayed, Advisor, to the Church of Archangel Michael and St. Tekla regarding the heritage designation of a building at 12091 Hurontario Street. Welcome, Mr. El-Sayed. Will 5 minutes be enough for your agenda, Mr. El-Sayed?
Should be. Well, I think so.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I need to take this back in a second. Here we go. All right, so good afternoon, members of council, chair, and my guests from the Church of Archangel Michael and St. Tekla. Today is Easter Monday for the Coptic, on the Coptic calendar, so I just want to wish everybody a happy Easter. I'm here today to speak about two specific properties, 12061 and 12091, Hurontario Street North in Brampton. These two properties are tied together. As you can see from the picture, 12061 is that little tiny one, and 12091 is the one with the red dot on it, the much larger church. But before I go any further, I want to thank the Director of Planning, Alan Parsons, for his help and guidance in recent weeks to get us where we are today. He has taken a solution-focused approach to what we're trying to do and has been really helpful throughout this process, and I just want to make sure that he's acknowledged in this process. So I'm here today to make two rather specific requests. One of them is to relieve the church from its obligation under the Heritage Act to pass the obligation to a new purchaser of the church. We have a couple of organizations, one of them being Raising the Roof, and the other one is the current tenant, the Covenant Keepers Ministry, that is renting it right now, whom have expressed interest in taking over the Heritage Church, the old church. And so we just want to facilitate or pave the way to pass that obligation over to them. And so that's one of them. And the other one is, the other request is the way they're tied together right now. They're coupled together, which is being rather problematic in many ways, as getting a permit to extend the current church to build a community center with it tied to certain obligations under Heritage Act for the old building. But the heritage building, discussion on the heritage building is only partially why I'm here to talk to you today. What I would like to show you, and I've gone through this a few times, is what the church of, hang on, I gotta go a little slower now. Here we go. This is what the current church looks like today. It's quite the state of the art. It's quite magnificent inside. Though partial, I am from Egypt, so I can see the architecture in that. And we've been located at this location for 27 years in the old church, 8 of them in this new one that we just built. And really, I want to extend an invitation to everybody who has not been to this church to come for a tour of it. This is quite stunning, actually. Now, moving forward, we have big plans, and they are to build a 30,000 square foot community athletic center attached to the church. And this is what it looks like, the artist rendition of it. Here, oops, these are not in order. There it is, that's the artist rendition. So it's 30,000 square feet attached to the existing church. The center is going to provide additional space for programs for children and youth. And as my mother would always say, happy hands, busy hands are happy hands. And so our approach is to involve as many youth as we can in actual programs and organized activities in that center. And therefore, they'll be less likely to get involved in anything else. So now, we have taken as well a solution-focused approach with the city in moving this permit along. And we're very excited to make this happen. And so with the two potential occupiers, we know that the heritage building needs to fall under them. And how do we do that to help the city move along with our permit to get this get this built? So here is the urgency. We need to get our building permit before June 1st, 2019. Our financial institution has extended our building loan agreement until that date. This is the second and last extension they have provided us with. Understanding how churches work, it is very difficult for a financial institution to justify extending loans. You don't have a steady stream of revenue to satisfy the loan. And in this case, there was an exception that was made for us, and it was extended twice, and they have informed us that they will not extend it past June 1st. Now, I know that puts an extraordinary amount of pressure to get a shovel in the ground, but that's the reality of what we need. We know the project is good for Brampton. We are integrated in the community. We have 400 families that come to this church that are part of our family. So, Brampton needs this community center as much as the community center is going to be helpful for Brampton. So I just want to, reiterate the need for us to facilitate or to expedite the shovel in the ground to get this center built. So once again, I want to thank Alan for helping us through this process to getting us here, and we just want to, share with you that the two issues is, one of them is our obligation under the Heritage Act, and the second one is the coupling of the two properties, which is causing certain restrictions when it gets to expending the permit for us. So with that being said, I'll say thank you, and if you have any questions, I'm available.
Thank you, Mr. Syed. And as a matter of fact, I do have some questions from members of council. Mayor Brown.
Thank you, Councilor Vicente. And first of all, it really is an architectural marvel. Anyone who's had the chance to go to this Coptic church, you have taken great effort for every detail in the facility, and it's a gift to have in the city of Brampton. This recreation center is also a gift to the city. What you're talking about, we talk about being a city with a high rate of diabetes, and you want to build a recreation center to keep our community healthy, not asking the city to contribute. You're doing this from your own fundraising. The fact that you want to build better recreation and you're not asking the city to help you build that, from a mayor's perspective, that's good news. Once again, just repeat, how big is this recreation center?
It's 30,000 square feet.
And the different recreational activities that could be encompassed in that?
Well, I know I'm getting my squash courts, I hope. So there's going to be that. There's going to be organized programming. So my expectation is going to be a basketball, there's going to be a gym, there's going to be a community hall, a gathering area for the community, and then regular programming after that.
Well, I know this has been something that's been in dealing with red tape for a number of years now. When did you start on this process? When did the community set out this goal to have a recreation center on their property?
2 years ago? 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
And you want to get going now, yesterday.
Well, yeah. Yes.
I think this is a creative solution, finding another charitable organization that wants to take on that component of the property that has the heritage designation. Mm-hmm. And I came into this meeting late, but did you mention the history behind that portion of the property was actually the Region Appeals at one point?
No, I didn't get into the
I think that would be important to highlight here.
Okay, so the property itself, let's go back again to this image, this one here. So that whole property was owned by the Coptic Church, and the Region of Peel has acquired that area behind the Heritage Building, that large building, for Peel Manor to build a retirement home. And part of the deal was a shared agreement on the restoration of the Heritage Building. Now that has been since changed in terms of shared agreement. So the building remains where it is. And so now we have this relationship where the Region of Peel can actually use the access in and out of their property from ours, from the Coptic Church. So that's where it's sitting right now. And so now we're stuck, and I'm going to use the word stuck, and I hate saying it, with the Heritage Building and its exponential costs of repairing and ongoing maintenance. So that's...
So you were, essentially the Coptic Church was doing a favor to the Region of Peel?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yes.
And you never thought that obligation would delay your ability to build the recreation center?
No.
No.
No. I mean, I've got a site plan agreement right here in front of me that actually outlines...
So maybe we could look to the clerk for, I imagine there's going to be a few questions, but while we receive the questions, I'll work with the clerk. I'd like to put forward a motion to take you up on the recommendation, the compromise that's been put forward. And so we can work on the wording while there's additional questions.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Brown. Councillor Santos.
Thank you through you, Chair. Hi, Rob. Thank you so much for coming in today. So 400 families at the church. How many young people? How many young folks are there?
That's a good question. How many young people? So about 3 to 4 children per family?
Amazing. And I have been to the church. I was there 4 years ago, and it is a stunning, stunning building, and congratulations to the community for that. I'm most interested in the fact that this is going to be supporting our young people in the city. I imagine you don't close your doors to people. I imagine they're wide open for those who are in need in the city for space and to keep our young people occupied. What other sort of programs does the church provide for the community?
Can I give you programs? Come on up here.
Good afternoon, everyone. We actually, as a church, we have established this community and this church for many years. Nowadays, we need to expand with the area of the sports complex and also daycare facilities for to serve the Brampton area, Brampton families, and also to support the church financially. That's all what we asking for, and this is what we planning to do.
Wonderful. Well, you do great work for the community and for all the parishioners of the church. When is the time? What is the timing for it to actually open, ideally?
Well, as soon as possible.
We've waited 2 years now, right?
We are ready. The bank is ready, and the bank cannot wait any longer.
Yeah.
And June 1st, and that's what we need. Approval as soon as possible in order to start, the shoveling in ground.
And so maybe a quick question through you, Chair, to perhaps the staff. What are the options for the Heritage Church right now?
So
we have to, actually, we have, okay.
Through Mr. Chair. Really, what's put to us to date is really an understanding from the applicants that there is another place of worship organization that's currently utilizing the existing heritage structure, and that they may very well look to continue their operation of that heritage structure. And I'm generally understanding that there may be an interest for them to purchase that structure as well. I think there's some a review of the various options, that being one of them that the gentlemen here today are really looking at in the larger organization. Outside of that, there is also some potential, I think they're looking at for relocating the heritage structure actually out of the city to Caledon to facilitate some residential uses. This is what I'm understanding from the applicants generally. So there are a number of opportunities that heritage structures such as this could be utilized. We could, if council committee wanted to, we do have an attendee from our heritage planning group today that could speak to some finer details of that and other heritage matters, but that's generally it.
Okay. No, I think that's okay. I just wanted to make sure that there obviously were options for it. Certainly, I share the sentiment of our mayor today, and certainly support whatever we can do so that we can proceed, before June 1st.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Santos. Just if I may, through to staff, in terms of the deadline pressure that is in place here with June 1st, is staff confident that we can help them to meet this deadline?
Yeah, so through you, Chair. The discussions that we've been having with Mr. Rob El-Sayed and others in his organization previously had identified that they do have some sensitivity with respect to having to pull a permit before June 1st to aid in their funding and such and their arrangements with the bank. So the discussions that we've had is that to facilitate pulling a permit, we would release what we refer to as a substantially complete memo that our development services staff would really share with the applicant and put to our building division staff as well. What that really informs building division staff is that the site plan application is proceeding along very well. All of the key matters that staff have been looking at through the site plan are essentially really completed, resolved, and it's just us going through some final steps to creating the site plan agreement and some final matters towards having a final approval on the site plan completed. But with that letter going to the applicant and to building staff, it would facilitate the issuance of a conditional permit that building staff could work with the applicant on, and I'm understanding that could satisfy the owner's needs with respect to their funding. So we've put that that additional step into place to allow them to pull a permit even whilst the site plan application as a whole is still just being completing its final steps through to approval. But just to speak generally to the full site plan approval, we're at the tail end of it as well. So in speaking with the applicant, they had been required to provide a submission, which would be regarded as a final submission that we would look to approve. That's come into us quite recently. We've asked for a study to come through to us to identify just what the minimal amount to secure financially for the heritage structure, just to understand what critical elements would need to be completed to the heritage structure so that it wouldn't deteriorate further in a significant way. We're going to be receiving that study along with their assessment as to what minimal number of securities, financial securities, are needed to complete those steps. Just as we're receiving that quite soon, I'm understanding from the applicant, we'll be able to put a final site plan approval out as well, over and beyond that substantially complete memo.
And I have another speaker on my board. I'll allow Mayor Brown.
Thank you, Councillor Vicente. Part of the complication in this matter, just to point out, is even with site plan approval, it's the holdback for the heritage obligation that the church assumed from the region. That holdback could be as much as, I understand, $500,000. Is that correct?
Through Mr. Chair, we have asked the applicants to really complete a study from a structural expert to identify what the security amount would be to ensure that the critical elements of the structure are really secured for. We don't have that amount yet, so I can't confirm.
So that was one of the estimates that I was advised of, and the problem with that is with a $500,000 holdback, you no longer have the funds to build the recreation center. And so this is once again where the good gets lost in the procedure. And so after speaking to Rick Kennard and our clerk, I'm working on a motion that I think would achieve a temporary solution. It would be asking staff to verify the new location is suitable for that heritage obligation, but at the same time, upon that verification, it would allow you to proceed for construction this year, as we know the eagerness to do so. And so I'm going to ask the clerk to put forward the motion that I would move, but we would need to waive the procedural bylaw to be able to put this forward today. And given the fact that we after 2 years, we want to get this finally off the ground, I would ask Council's committee's indulgence for hearing this today.
So, members of committee, the mayor has requested to waive the council's procedural rules. Do I have all in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
A recorded vote.
Mr. Clerk? I have another speaker on my board. Councillor Bowman.
So, I haven't seen the motion yet. So waiving the procedural bylaws before I see the motion is I think a little premature. Can we see the motion?
That's fair.
It's still being developed by
Okay.
staff, so.
So perhaps if I could just have a motion to receive the delegation and we can deal with this item later. Councillor Pleshy, motion to receive the delegation. All in favor? Carried. Okay, and we'll move on to our next item on the agenda. Item 5.1, possible delegations, amendments to the signed bylaw regarding 4 proposed properties, one at Kelsey's Restaurant, 2 locations, 70 Quarry Edge Drive and 2870 Queen Street East in wards 1 and 8. Amica Senior Lifestyle, Amica Peel Village at 223 Main Street South, Ward 3. Brampton Fire Station 204 at 657 Queen Street West in Ward 4. And Connect Properties Limited, Lionhead Marketplace, 8205 to 8405 Financial Drive, Ward 6. Is anyone here today who wishes to speak to the committee regarding these proposed amendments to the signed bylaw? Seeing none, I have a motion to move. Mr. Clerk, is there a recommendation here? Okay, so we have reports 7.4, 7.5, 7.6, and 7.7. May I have a motion to move these reports forward from Councillor Pelletier? All in favor? Carried. Our next item is item 6. We have no staff presentations, so following that we have items from planning. Item 7.1 was in the consent agenda, as was item 7.2. Our next item is item 7.3, a report regarding the Community Improvement Plan, or CIP, for investment attraction. Do any members have questions or comments on this report? Councillor Bowman.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Okay, I'm just wondering, in the report recommends hiring a consultant to do the report for us. Do we have any idea what the cost of that consultant might be?
Through you, Mr. Chair. At this time, no, we don't. We're anticipating, because it's an invitational request for an RFP, that it would be under $100,000. But it's not clear at this time. The scope of the project could change with the RFP and the discussions that we have around that, depending on the information that we exchange with the consultant. So we're anticipating and hoping at this time that it would be somewhere in the area of $100,000 or less. But it would be, if it is over that amount, then it would be at the discretion of the director of the department or the commissioner to allow for that extra, if there is an extra.
Okay, have we looked at the possibility of hiring a person to do this? Because I'm sure there's going to be a lot more of this type of work in the future with the economic development that Brampton is experiencing. Have we looked at hiring a person with these skills to be on our staff?
Through you, Mr. Chair, not to my knowledge, no.
Is it an option? I'm just wondering. I don't know.
It could be an option for sure. There are people like myself who have dealt with CIPs before in the past and have that experience. So there's a potential there that you could go out to the market and see if there's anybody that has the experience to undertake, like to be a PM for a project like this. But are you meaning for the purposes of doing the study or just to manage the project?
Both.
Okay, so I would suggest that somebody to do the study would be, there would be a few parts, I think, to the study, so people with different expertise that would be required. A market study would be a huge part of the overall CIP study, but there will be other parts that will have to be considered. So that might be difficult to have to find somebody with that knowledge, but certainly somebody to manage the project. There would be, I think that would be easy enough to find in one candidate.
Okay.
Yeah.
So perhaps if I can just add through you, Mr. Chair, I think with the direction that we've previously received from council to really look at having the study completed itself, we thought that really it would be best to engage a firm or engage a number of firms to be able to bid on that project. And really, with us engaging really firms that are experts in the matter, they would be well equipped to complete that for us. I think on an ongoing basis, aside from the study itself to help us understand how best to apply a CIP for all of our objectives, that is a matter that we can look at further and report back to really through the budgeting cycle as to, always then into, oncoming years, have ourselves set up well internally, in-house, looking at economic development matters from the planning standpoint.
Okay, and that's sort of what I was getting at, Alan. That this is not something that we're just going to do a study on and then try and enact in 6 months. This is something that's going to be going on for as long as we decide the CIP needs to be in place for our economic development options. So that's why I was asking if we're going to be hiring a person with specific skill sets to carry this project on.
if I can add through you, Mr. Chair, I think, I don't think one person would be able to do it, because if you look at the motion that was originally passed, council is looking at a variety of things and sectors to be considered as part of that CIP study, including, well, sectors such as innovation and technology, advanced manufacturing, but also the sort of the green technology side of things as well, and in just an overall market analysis as well. So it might be difficult to have one person with all of that expertise and understanding to undertake the study. That's why we would consult with a firm that might have a broader scope.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bowman. Seeing no other speakers, may I have a motion to accept the staff report? Councillor Williams, all in favor? That carries. Items 7.4 through 7.7 were addressed in the previous delegation. And so now we're to move forward onto item 8, the minutes. We have the minutes of the Brampton Heritage Board from April 16, 2019. Do any members have questions or comments on these minutes? Seeing none, may I have a motion from Councillor Willens and to approve the minutes? All in favor? Carried. We also have here item 8.2, the minutes of the Age-Friendly Brampton Advisory Board. These were addressed in the consent agenda. Do we have the motion ready for item 5.2? So we can deal with that now. So we'll bring item 5.2 forward.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think there still might be some discussions with the City Clerk and Commissioner of Planning at this moment about that.
Would it be committee's wish to then take a short recess until the motion is ready? Do I have a motion to go into recess? Councillor Santos, all in favor? Carried. We're in recess. As long as they need. So we are now back. We are still dealing with items that have arisen from a delegation. Item 5.2, a delegation from Church of Archangel Michael and St. Tekla. I have Mayor Brown on the board.
Thank you, Councilor Vicente. I believe you're going to be seeing a motion on the screen that I believe is a solution. And just to, normally I don't come to the planning committee meetings. I observe the minutes afterwards. But I came to this one because I do believe there is urgency to this issue. I don't want to lose another construction season for what is a community good. A recreation center being privately fundraised through the generosity of a church is a wonderful thing for the city of Brampton. And this motion here would allow the construction to start, so no further securities would be taken for the heritage structure that is going to be moved to Caledon based upon the approvals of the two heritage boards. But this would allow the funds to be available to begin the construction of this recreation center this year. That frankly, I wish could have happened 2 years ago. But the key thing is we are where we are now, and we don't want to see any further delays, and I believe this would enable that construction to begin this year.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before we can debate further, we need to waive the procedural bylaws in order to consider this motion in any further direction to staff. So I have a motion from Councillor Singh to waive the procedural bylaw to consider this motion.
So are there any members that would like to speak to waiving the rules?
Are there any members that would like to speak to waiving the rules? I have Councillor Santos on the board. Oh, no. Councillor Paleshi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So typically I don't like waiving the rules of procedure. I have in the past at the region and sometimes last term. And the reason why I do is if there's funding attached to this. If there's funding attached to the reason for waiving the rules. So I need to ask prior to me supporting waiving the rules of procedure, and this motion, is it the intent that if this motion passes, the footing permit, the building permit would be supplied to the church prior to June 1st of this year so they can secure their funding?
Through you, Mr. Chair, this motion does not speak directly to that. The application for building permit was received by the building division March 21st, I believe was the date. What we would do is work with the property owner to secure a conditional permit prior to that date so that the funding was not lost. That is not directly tied to the site plan agreement or the site plan process. They do have substantial completion, which would allow us to go down the path of issuing a conditional permit, subject to, having the correct drawings in place in compliance with the building code for that phase of construction. I have no doubt we could achieve that by June 1st. What this would do is allow us to move forward with the site plan process, and if it was possible to complete in a timely enough manner, we would then be able to issue a permit without conditions.
And is typically a building permit conditional enough for someone for an applicant to take to the bank to secure the funding or to finalize I guess they've already secured it, but it's the final, June 1st is the deadline.
Through you, Mr. Chair, historically that has been enough with infrastructure projects that have been tied to funding in the past. We have met that target through conditional permitting.
Okay, so then this covers the other issue of securities towards the money that's going to be allotted to a rec center rather than anything else which the bank needs. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And Councillor Plushy, if it's helpful, we could include in the purpose in the motion for the June 1st start date.
I would be a lot more comfortable with that.
On the proposed recreation center being constructed this summer.
I would just like to remind committee that we need to waive the procedural rules before we begin to debate this item. So I have a motion from Councillor Singh to waive the procedural rules. All in favor? Recorded vote.
Do I get a vote on this?
Oh, standing vote?
Yeah, my lights aren't working.
We'll need to do a standing vote.
You can do standing?
If members of council would wish, or members of committee would wish to do a standing vote, that's fine. All in favor of waiving the rules of procedure, please stand to be counted. Showing in favor is Councillor Santos, Councillor Willens, Councillor Palashi, Councillor Bowman, Chair Vicente, Mayor Brown, Councillor Singh, Councillor Dillon. Mr. Chair, that carries unanimously 8-0.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. As we were, Mayor Brown, you're still on the board.
If that was a requested friendly amendment from Councillor Palashi that we add in the wording on the proposed recreation center construction that will be beginning this summer as of June 1st.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. I see no other speakers on the board as we wait for the full motion to be up on the screen. It is now up on the screen. Do I have any further speakers on this motion? Seeing none. All in favor of the motion as on the screen? Carried. Thank you. Our next item is item 10, the referred matters list. It's a list of outstanding business referred or deferred to council or a standing committee. The clerk reports quarterly with the list, status, resolution, and or expected reporting date to the outstanding businesses, business referred or deferred. Do any members have questions regarding the referred matters list? Seeing none. Next, we can deal with item 14, councillor question period. Do any members have questions of staff regarding matters within the jurisdiction of the Planning Development Committee? Seeing none. Our next item is public question period. This is where we invite members of the public to come forward to the podium and ask any questions about any recommendation made by committee at today's meeting. There's a 15-minute time limit for all questions and answers. Are there any questions from the public about a recommendation made by committee at today's meeting? If so, please come forward. Seeing none, our next item is item 16. There are no closed session items, so we have adjournment. Our last item. Thank you, members, for your respectful consideration and recommendations today, and we thank you, staff, for your information and advice. Today's recommendations will be presented to City Council for approval at its next regular meeting of January 23rd, 2019. The committee is next scheduled to meet on Monday, May the 13th, 2019 at 7 p.m. May I have a motion to adjourn today's meeting from Councillor Santos? All in favor? Carried. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.